All right, let's dive in. Today, we are heading up a high mountain to get to the bottom of one of the wildest, most powerful events you'll find in the Gospels. We're talking about the Transfiguration.
So picture this. Jesus takes his inner circle, Peter, James, and John, up a mountain. And all of a sudden, his appearance just changes. The Greek word used here is literally where we get metamorphosis. And this isn't some external special effect like a spotlight. No, this is his own divine glory shining out from his very humanity. It's intense.
So, an event this incredible, it naturally brings up a couple of huge questions, right? First off, what in the world are the disciples even seeing? And maybe more importantly, why is this happening now? Of all times, why this specific moment in Jesus' ministry? Let's tackle that first question, the what. Okay, so as if Jesus literally shining like the sun wasn't enough to process, two other guys just appear. And they're not just anybody. They're figures from centuries ago, and they're just casually talking with him. Who they are is our first massive clue to unlocking this whole thing.
The first visitor, it's Moses. Now you gotta understand, for any Jewish person back then, Moses is the law. He's the guy who went up Mount Sinai, came back with the Torah. He's the foundation of their entire covenant with God. He represents the ultimate authority, period.
And visitor number 2 is Elijah. He stands for the entire line of the prophets. All the messengers who spoke for God over the centuries. But there's more. There is this huge belief that Elijah himself would come back right before the Messiah showed up. So him being here, that's not just a detail. It's a giant flashing sign.
So here's the crucial takeaway from this. You've got Moses and Elijah standing right there. What the gospel is saying is unbelievably powerful. It's basically showing that the entire Old Testament, everything's summed up by the law and the prophets. It was all leading up to this. It was all pointing directly at Jesus. And this is where things get really interesting. Think about it. Moses also met God on a mountain, right? And his face shone afterwards. But here's the difference. Moses was reflecting God's glory, like a mirror. Jesus, on the other hand, is the source of that glory. It's coming from inside him. This is a huge distinction. We're not just looking at another prophet here. This is something completely different. Okay, so the disciples are just trying to get their heads around this absolutely mind-blowing vision, and then bam, the scene hits its peak. A cloud rolls in and a voice speaks from it. This is the heart of the whole event.
And you just have to love Peter's reaction here. It's so human. He sees this incredible, glorious moment, and his first thought is, this is amazing. Let's build some tents. Let's stay right here and just bottle this up forever. He wants to hold on to that mountaintop high and, maybe avoid the tough journey back down.
But he barely gets the words out before he's interrupted. See, this bright cloud isn't just some fog rolling in. Not at all. In the Old Testament, a cloud like this is the classic sign of God's holy physical presence. Think of the cloud that covered the tabernacle in the wilderness. This is a big deal. And then, out of that cloud comes the command, the main event. It's the Father's voice, and it sounds a lot like what was said at Jesus' baptism, but with this one critical addition. Listen to him. That's the whole point of this entire experience. The message isn't build tents for him or stare at him in awe. It's listen to what he has to say.
Which brings us to our second big question, remember? The why now? Why give the disciples this absolutely overwhelming vision of glory right at this specific point in time? Well, as it turns out, the timing is everything.
You see, this whole thing didn't just happen out of the blue. It came right after Jesus dropped a bombshell on his disciples for the very first time. He told them he was going to Jerusalem and that he was going to suffer and be killed. Imagine hearing that. They were confused, they were scared, probably totally demoralized. This vision, it was God's direct answer to their fear.
And this is just a brilliant bit of divine strategy if you think about it. God is essentially giving them a sneak peek of the final destination, a stunning glimpse of who Jesus really is in all his glory. This memory, this moment of pure light, it's meant to be like a spiritual anchor for them, something they can cling to when the absolute darkness of the crucifixion hits. So, okay, what does this ancient story mean for us right now? Well, the takeaways are pretty direct, and they're profound. First, this is confirmation. Jesus is not just a good teacher, he is the divine Son of God. Second, it hands us our own mission. Listen to him, even and especially when it's hard. It's also this powerful promise that the cross, that suffering, is never the final word. Glory is. And finally, think about this. When the disciples are terrified, what does Jesus do? He touches them and says, "Don't be afraid."
His glory isn't there to crush us, it's there to strengthen us.
And that idea of not being afraid, that brings us right to the end of the vision. The cloud lifts, the light fades, and the whole scene just comes into this final, sharp focus. And what the disciples see now, what they're left with, is just as important as the spectacle they just witnessed. I mean, after the blinding light, after the heavenly visitors, after the very voice of God, the disciples finally look up, and everything else is gone. Moses is gone. Elijah is gone. There is only one person left. And the symbolism here, wow, it's just breathtaking. The law, represented by Moses, and the prophets, by Elijah, they've done their job. They have pointed the way, and now they can fade into the background because their entire purpose has been fulfilled in the one person they were pointing to this whole time. From here on out, the story is all about him.
So, when you strip it all back, after all the spectacular stuff, the light, the famous visitors, the voice from the cloud, what are we really left with? What's the core message? What is the one single truth we're supposed to walk away with from this incredible experience?
It really all boils down to this. The command is crystal clear. Listen to Jesus. The game plan for life is to trust him through the hard times. And the ultimate promise is that our final destination is glory. And that's not just some nice thought from a story that happened 2,000 years ago. That, right there, is the bedrock of faith.